everyone. Thank you for joining Encore Palm Beach County for the last in our series, our Words of Wisdom series, preparing us for our Wisdom and Experience event. And today we are joined by our special guest, Mandy Long. You'll be hearing more about her in just a little while. And Karen Roberts, our resident HR specialist and board member.
And we're thrilled to have Mandy with us today. And she's going to talk about intergenerational interactions and how they drive workplace engagement. So this theme of intergenerational interactions, intergenerational workforce, which Larry Samuels told us was the key to success in business, is wonderful. So we can't wait to hear what Mandy has to share today. Mandy is the founder of Excellence Innovators, LLC. It's a South Florida-based consulting firm, and she offers forward-thinking management and talent solutions. Her focus is on people-first leadership. Love to hear that, with an emphasis on operational excellence through talent management. She is a strategic visionary, and we need lots of those. Mandy is committed to innovating workplace culture by challenging outdated norms. When she is not doing that, she is serving as Director of Operational Excellence at the club at Ibis. It's an award-winning private country club in West Palm Beach. And she has been able, with her role there, to focus on unique workplace culture management strategies and the importance of aligning the member experience, because they have members there at Ibis, with the employee experience and how they both are mutually beneficial. Mandy is passionate about youth empowerment, workforce readiness, and creative solutions for linking talent with labor market needs. She's also very involved in the West Palm Beach Police Athletic League Board, Palm Beach County Reentry Task Force Employment Subcommittee, Palm Beach State College Hospitality Advisory Board, a Florida State University career mentor, a business and dining etiquette coach, and a member of the Leadership Palm Beach County Class of 2020. Mandy holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Management from U of F, and as well, she is a PHR, Professional in Human Resources Management, and also a SHRM CP. These are important designations in the human resources field. So Mandy, welcome. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for that very warm welcome. And I have to say, Karen, hearing about all of the amazing content that has been shared in the last 6 months or so of these series, I feel really honored to get to share a little bit about what I do, because clearly your lineup thus far has been very impressive. And what I have kind of given some thought to in preparation for today is exactly in line with everything that you all have been sharing in these series. So I'm glad to know that what I plan to share, those sentiments have been echoed by other presenters as well.
Well, wonderful. Well, you're a wonderful way to have us conclude and bring to a very wonderful conclusion this series, Mandy. So thank you for sharing your wisdom today.
My pleasure.
Okay. Our first question for you, and of course, we will open up at the end for questions from the audience if folks have any, but we do have some predetermined questions that we think, as Mandy said, will really bring home the points that she wants to make. So Mandy, in your role as the founder of Excellence Innovators, what types of outdated norms do you help your clients overcome to improve workplace culture?
Thank you, Karen. You know, when I started this consulting business, and it really, you know, it isn't my bread and butter, as Karen shared. I also have a full-time day job. But when thinking about branching out and starting to offer some of the services that I've done at Ibis for other employers, and just coming up with a catchy name to brand as an LLC, I wanted it to be clear that I want to innovate the way that we've always done things. I can't stand it when people say, well, we've always done it that way, you know, as an answer for things. That doesn't work for me. I push back against that. So innovation is a key core value of mine. And so the Excellence Innovators kind of felt right for me, because I believe obviously in excellence in our products and services, but only through innovation. So that being said, outdated norms is a passion of mine when dealing with any clients, and also with my, my employer, my full-time employer. One topic that has come up again and again is we're all in this interesting labor shortage nationwide, specifically hitting the hospitality industry, which is an area that I have worked for the majority of my career, is the concept of onboarding and training staff. Clients that I worked with said, well, I'm trying to find some people, and then when I find them, I don't really have time to onboard them, so I just kind of give them a training packet and away they go. And I have been working with clients to understand the difference between onboarding and an orientation. Those are not the same concepts. And an orientation could be an hour-long class or a day-long or 2-day-long program, based on the company's needs. But a true onboarding should be an indoctrination to the culture and values of that organization. And that really starts before the candidate has even applied for the job. It should anyway. Thinking about how our organizations are represented within the county. What is our website saying about who we are as a place to work? What values are important to us? What standards or expectations do we have for our staff? How are we being represented on social media as a company? Because the candidate is interacting with you before they apply for the job. They're looking at the website, right? And so thinking about how we're represented and the values that are important, even from the candidate's lens, is really an important part of the onboarding experience. And I think a lot of employers have missed the boat on that. They don't pay an intentional focus on the onboarding before the new hire experience begins. And onboarding actually continues all the way, up to sometimes a year or longer. It's all the way until the employee has achieved what I refer to as peak productivity. It's not just that training packet, it's the whole process of really feeling that they are truly a high-performing individual in that organization's staff. So that's one area. The second outdated norm that comes to mind is passive recruitment. Posting a job and waiting for people to apply for the job. This doesn't work anymore. This is not the future of recruitment, especially when we're in a situation that, again, nationwide, we're facing in several different industries. And I think we have to go out and find talent where it exists. And as employers, shift our thinking of what the perfect candidate may look like. And so, that is how I came to find Rosemary and Encore, is thinking about, okay, so I'm in South Florida. What does Palm Beach County look like? And is my base of employees representative of what Palm Beach County looks like? So we have partnered with Encore and, post positions through that, but also asking for referrals. Who do you know that's out there looking that may be interested in something we have here? We've also at Ibis formed partnerships with resources for people who are differently abled. I started a program with Els for Autism Foundation, where we are doing 2 different programs, hiring individuals with autism for regular employment with the company. We also have a new work experience program, which is on-the-job training, 12-week training for individuals on the autism spectrum, where then they have something great on their resume they can use to either stay with our organization or maybe find jobs elsewhere. But these are just 2 examples. I'm trying to think. We also work with Vita Nova, which is a youth homeless organization. These are youth that are trying to gain freedom in life. Freedom comes through finding a job. So that's been successful. I mentioned in the bio that I'm on the reentry task force for Palm Beach County. We have hundreds of people reentering society from periods of time of incarceration that need to find jobs, or they may end up right back where they started. And so thinking about these individuals as not people with a story. All of us have a story, right? But a job is a key to freedom. A job is a key to finding passion, purpose, that North Star, plugging back into finding something within yourself. So really shifting the paradigm of how do we recruit? How do we intentionally look for people? And what does talent look like? It doesn't look like it maybe did 10 years ago in the market. And so I think that that's something more organizations need to be thinking about if they're going to keep up with the changing labor market.
Wonderful. Well, I saw a number of folks on the call clapping and applauding at many of the things that you said, and I think we're all nodding our heads. So wonderful. Thank you for
Karen,
sharing.
these individuals, even though, like I said, they each have their own story, but they're providing useful skills to our organization. And we're not doing them a favor by giving them a job. And that applies to our mature workers or people who are, coming through a difficult period of time in their life, or those who are differently abled. They're providing a skill for us, and they're a useful, valuable part of our team. And so that's something else an employer should think about, is if they're going to go out and use these community resource partners to help find individuals seeking employment opportunities, or volunteer experiences, that we're not doing them a favor. In fact, they're doing us a favor, because we really need them on our team.
That's true. And unfortunately, I do hear stories from fellow HR colleagues who shall remain anonymous, that many companies still haven't gotten that message. They still think that, okay, well, if these people don't work out, we'll just go get a bunch more. And it's just not that way anymore. But there's still companies that are still operating under that, as you said, 10 years ago headset. So keep ringing the bell on that, Mandy. That's wonderful. And thank you for sharing the different partnerships and use of community resources. It's lots of things for us to think about. Our second question for you today is, what advice do you give organizations who want to improve and or foster intergenerational interactions? And what are some of the best practices you've seen or come across?
When it comes to your existing employee base, offering employees the autonomy to create an employee resource group can be a very powerful thing. For those that may not be familiar, an employee resource group is inviting employees who either share a similar background, a similar ethnicity, or an interest, or a hobby, or just a lifestyle choice, to gather together in groups and to socialize and to network and to build community within the organization. And so at Ibis, for example, we have a Women Empowering Women employee resource group, and we have a session this afternoon. We're bringing in a nutritionist to talk to a group of our employees on healthy eating choices. But our Women Empowering Women group, we also offer mentorship, and we have women of all age brackets that belong to that employee resource group. So we have some that are still in high school, that are considering what they want their long-term career to be. And we have others that this is a second or a third act for them working at Ibis. And so they're sitting alongside one another, these, different generations, hearing about topics like nutrition, or we've done one on financial empowerment. We've done, one just was in yoga and meditation, but you have women laying side by side doing yoga that may be 3 generations apart. But what a great way to build gaps, just doing things that are of interest, regardless of our age in this case. Another, and this gets back to what I was saying before, is really shifting as an employer, our way of thinking, would be not being afraid to have honest conversations with candidates, and to be more open-minded with looking at resumes. So I recall in the slides for prior sessions that there was a lot of conversation about blind hiring and personal bias or implicit bias about hiring mature workers. But I think what happens is HR professionals or a hiring manager will see a resume and think this person's overqualified. And in their mind, they don't think that they're being discriminatory. They think they're doing this person a favor by, they wouldn't want to work here doing this. This is an entry-level job. So in our case, in hospitality, many of the positions where mature workers are working in our company, in fact, we have almost 40% of our workplace is comprised of workers over age 50. And so it's a high percentage of our business that are in the mature category. So many of them are working in entry-level positions. We also have executives, that fall into that age bracket. So it spans, all different levels of the company. But seeing someone's resume, it's how could we possibly make an assumption that this person isn't in the right fit without having a conversation? I think people, they're afraid to have an honest conversation with a candidate. There's no harm in reaching out to have a phone call to say, you have a very impressive resume, and I'd like to just share with you some details about the position you've applied for to make sure you understand the role and the rate of pay and the expectations for, the duties that you'll be doing. And here in South Florida, where we have so many seasonal and part-time residents, you'd be surprised how many overqualified candidates aren't looking for that anymore. They're looking for, a part-time job to get them out of the house, to find purpose, to connect with people, to keep themselves busy and active, and their minds active, their bodies, physically active. So a lot of those conversations can lead to, employment opportunities that on paper maybe didn't make sense. The other thing is thinking about the roles that we have to fill within our own organizations. When we have an opening, let's say, that was vacated by a former employee, it's human nature to think, well, I need to find someone similar to fill that void. And so maybe it was a full-time position, but it could be done by 2 part-time people. Or maybe it's a position that could now be filled by someone working remotely, and even an on-call position. And so just thinking differently about even the structure of our own positions and how the work is being performed, while removing whatever personal bias we may have based on past experience or the person that may have previously been in that role. That's really no longer relevant. And thinking future about how can this position be most effective for our organization, considering the talent pool we have, how can we make this work?
Oh, those are excellent suggestions. Thank you. Okay, question number 3. What are some of the best ways organizations can engage their workforce? And of course, you've mentioned a couple already in terms of the resource groups and just getting to know each employee, making sure they're onboarded versus just oriented. What might be some other ones to share?
Well, it has to be intentional. It doesn't happen by accident. In fact, at new hire classes, we have a class, for each group of new hires. I will ask the question, how many of us in the room have had a job that we hated? And you see a few hands sort of reluctantly. I'm like, my hand is up there. I had a job that I hated, right? That's why I don't work there anymore. And I will then follow up and ask them, what was it about that job that made it not a good fit for you? And through some coaxing, people will open up a little and say, well, it was this or it was that, but it always comes down to the same thing. It was people. People were the problem. It wasn't typically the job itself that they didn't like. It was management and it was coworkers. And the fact that they didn't like their coworkers, that's management's fault, because management hired those people or allowed that toxic environment to continue. And so, how I feel about that is, nobody intentionally decides they want to be a bad place to work, right? No company is setting up core values saying we want to be an awful, toxic work environment. But yet, because they're not taking the opposite intentional approach to decide we want to be a great place to work, the default happens, right? You're going to have a culture that's created by accident if it's not on purpose. And that culture piece is just so important when we think about the success of an organization. Happy employees make happy customers or happy clients, or in our case, happy members. It's not rocket science. If you treat your people well, they'll take care of the customer. And so, taking time as an organization to think about, okay, well, how do we want our service and amenities and product to be received by our customer? Okay, we know that. Now, how do we want to go about finding the right people? What type of people do we want? What values do we want to hold those people to? How are we going to train them to provide the service or the amenity or the product to those customers? And how are we going to hold them accountable if it doesn't happen? And so even through a strategic planning session as an organization, no matter how long you've been in business, but to take a step back and think about these really fundamental questions as to who we are as an organization is integral to creating an environment that is rich with engagement and hopefully one where employees won't raise their hand at their next employer and say, I hated working there. So, there's a lot of detailed things I could say about communicating with employees, the way they want to be communicated with. But at the end of the day, focus on engagement has to start as an organization, deciding who we want to be, type of people we have working here, how do we want to hold them accountable for those particular standards. It all starts with that.
Hear, hear. Excellent.
I feel like I'm
Love
preaching
it.
to the choir with this group, but
Well, we're, like I said, we're agreeing, a lot of head nodding, and this is just good stuff. So thank you for sharing.
of course.
Question 4. At the club at Ibis, what ways have you found that intergenerational interactions have indeed enhanced member experience?
I'll answer this, but I'm also going to say that they have enhanced the employee experience as well. And it goes back to happy employees make happy members. When we have people that like working here and like the people they work with, they're inclined to, provide a better service to the membership. We survey our employees twice a year. And in the survey, we'll ask, tell us what we're doing well as an organization. And one of the things that we inevitably see over and over again on the survey is I like the people I work with. I like the members that I get to serve. It comes down to the people, and that being an intentional choice who we have within our organization. We have employees as young as 16, and we have employees that are in their mid 80s and everything in between. We all eat together in the employee cafeteria. We are very lucky that our company serves us a free meal every day that we're at work, but we don't separate the cafeteria based on department or age group or anything else. We all sit together. And through that even small interaction of encouraging employees to just sit with someone that looks different than you, sit with someone who doesn't have the same uniform on, sit with someone who you've never met before and strike up a conversation. That's how the network within the organization is built. That's how these friendships are formed. That ultimately makes for a happier work environment for staff. Just something simple like who you have lunch with every day. And from the member perspective, our average age at Ibis is mid to late 60s of our members. So most of them are retired or are transitioning to retirement, empty nesters, we'll say. And so having a high percentage of employees who are over age 50, it's a really a natural fit for them to engage with members. They have, in many cases, they come from the same generation. And so they have gone through similar life experiences and are able to share even events that have happened in the course of history that have shaped them as individuals. They share that. 16-year-old employee isn't going to be able to relate to a gentleman or woman in their mid 70s the same way that an employee who is of a similar age bracket will about certain topics. Also, when it comes to rules enforcement, right? Country clubs have rules that members have to follow, and those rules are there for a reason, but they're also difficult for employees to say to a member, I'm sorry, we have a dress code that you're not in compliance with, or on the golf course, you need to pick up your pace of play, your group is falling behind. That's a hard conversation to have with a member. Now, imagine as let's say a 70-year-old golf group, would you rather receive that heads up on the rules reminder from a 16-year-old or from someone who's the same age that can relate to you on a different level? So our mature workers provide a very valuable skill to us in many ways, but not the least of which is even having those uncomfortable conversations with tact, decorum, professionalism, and also just that zest that comes with life experience to say, I get it, it's hot, you're having conversation on the golf course, but I need you to step it up so that you stay within your assigned tea time.
Oh, that's great. Thank you for that, Mandy. Let's see. The question 5. Tell us, please, about 1 or 2 mature workers who have made a difference for their employers or customers or members. So it could either be at Ibis or in some of your consulting that you've done.
There's 2 individuals that come to mind, and they are actually both at Ibis. And one is a food and beverage employee. She has been with our organization for about 20 years. And over the course of 20 years, if you're good at what you do, especially in a restaurant environment, you will learn member preferences. Of course, you learn their names, but she takes it further. When a member walks through the entrance of the restaurant, she knows already which bar stool they will sit at, what their favorite drink is, whether they like, a particular garnish or style of glassware. She knows not only their name, but probably their kids or grandkids' name. She'll remember they had a dance recital for their granddaughter last month, and she'll remember to bring it up and ask about that, because she understands that, as a grandparent, that's an important topic, that members want to talk about their grandchildren and the pride that comes with that. And so she just takes it to the next level in providing amazing personalized service and engaging on that personal level with members, where it goes beyond just the exchange of business in that moment. And in fact, we had a gentleman member call the club. This is several months ago, 6 months ago, maybe. And he said that his wife's health was failing, and she had dementia. She was not doing well, was probably not going to make it much longer. And he said, is there any way this food and beverage employee could come to our home and see my wife? Because she's the only one my wife remembers and is asking for her. Because they've had this 20-year relationship, of her dining at the club, and just the conversation that she would enjoy with her, that it would mean a lot, he said to my wife, if it was possible for her to come and visit. It's stories like that you don't often hear in business. But again, it wouldn't have happened. Nothing against our young employees. They offer amazing value in different ways, but it wouldn't have happened with an 18-year-old or a 21-year-old in food and beverage. That bond wouldn't have been formed. It's because this employee is in a similar age bracket and able to engage in a different way, and took the time to get to know this woman, and, was sweet with her and patient with her as she saw her health decline, and eventually was there at her bedside before she passed. So it's a beautiful, touching story, but it's just one of many as it comes to interacting with members. And on the opposite side, interacting with employees, we have an employee shuttle driver who I was telling Karen about this gentleman. He's just amazing. He is very open about the fact that he has bought and sold businesses in his life. He was an extremely successful entrepreneur. He has a lot of money. He's not at Ibis for the salary, but he just loves people, and he loves driving the employee shuttle. And he comes to work every day with the most incredible attitude. And as an employee, if you come to work and you park your car, you have to ride a shuttle for 5 minutes to the clubhouse. We don't have ample parking for all of our members and our staff. And so to start your day as an employee, you may have had whatever happened at home before you get there, rushing in traffic, but to then have this, shuttle driver be so upbeat and so positive and filled with life. And that's the first person you engage with as a staff member. It sets the tone for your whole day, right? You can't have a bad day when he drives you to work in the shuttle, because he's just so full of life. And just an incredible upbeat person. And during COVID, when we stopped the shuttle, he would just keep asking, when is the shuttle coming back? Like, I can work in other areas of the club, but I miss driving the employees. So we're grateful for him and just making us smile as staff. It's people like that just, they make it a really fun place to come to work.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Mandy, for sharing. Our last question is, what behaviors are key to look for in hiring employees who thrive in an intergenerational team environment?
I spoke earlier about core values, and I'm a structure person, and I'm a big believer that having structured values as an organization is key. One of the values I created here as part of the core values at Ibis, and have proposed similar structures for clients of mine, has to do with belonging. And in an age where we talk a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion, belonging falls right within that spectrum there. But belonging is not just a fancy word to put on a poster, but when we are hiring individuals, whatever our core value may be, maybe it's integrity or it's the word inclusion, but to interview candidates and really think about these values that are important to your company during the interview process is helpful in finding people that are going to be, an appropriate fit regardless of, the actual skills to do the job. I think, as it relates to intergenerational team environment too, humility, openness, willingness to learn. These are all characteristics that through an interview conversation, because that's all an interview is, right? It's just a conversation between two people trying to figure out if this is going to be a good match for both sides of the table. But looking for individuals that are just open to learning new things. They have a heart for service of your customers or your clients. And they really buy into the mission of the organization. Those characteristics transcend any generation, right? So if we look at not just trying to figure out how do we hire a certain age group, but moreover, how do we find people who fit those characteristics, I think you're sure to get rid of some of those other bias that may prevent us from seeing a particular candidate in a certain way, and instead just hire really great people who have a heart for other people.
Well, thank you, Mandy. Very good words of wisdom. I see the time is 1 o'clock, but I don't want to rush if anyone has a follow-up question before we wrap up. Anybody would like to make a comment or ask Mandy a question or share? I think what she has provided, of course, I'm taking very good notes, and I'm sure everybody else is. And Mandy, as I said, I'm seeing everyone with thumbs up and claps and nodding of heads. So I know that your words are certainly resonating with all of us. So thank you very much. Again, to be respectful of everyone's time, I think what we'll do is just mention, of course, our Wisdom and Experience Works for Business event on the 29th. It's coming up a week from Friday. I see that let's see, Marilyn Bieber has chatted, put something in the chat, the link to register information. Mm-hmm. And we have some of a couple of our nominees on the call with us. So welcome to some of those of you who are nominated, and good luck. And again, this is at the West Palm Beach Airport Hilton, where we are going to be honoring 19 companies from Palm Beach County, both small and large, who have nominated themselves for this inaugural award. And we'd love to have all of you who can attend be part of it. So with that, Rosemary, anything else for the good of the order as we close up here?
Of course, you know I have something to say.
Okay.
First of all, Mandy, you have made me want to come and work at Ibis.
You're very welcome. We got lots of jobs open.
Actually, I don't need or want a job, but you made it sound like such an attractive place to work, which a lot of people don't. And of course, anybody who reads the news today knows that a lot of people have left their jobs or been laid off and are not going back to previous employers because those employers did not respect them and appreciate them as human beings. And I think that it's about time that in our society, we wake up to the fact that we need a lot of cultural change in terms of how we respect other people. But I did want to make 2 points. One was 50 years ago, as a young working woman in Hartford, Connecticut, and dealing with the biggest insurance companies up there, I learned that the tone of an organization is set at the top by the very top person, the president, the CEO, and it filters all the way down to the very bottom person. And I could tell the tone and feeling of an organization walking into the reception lobby.
Yeah.
Where the person I met there, I said, good vibes here. And the second thing is I loved your focus on innovation. I moved to Florida after many years of working in Connecticut and in 1994. And I moved here because the atmosphere in Connecticut was, well, we've always done it this way. And I was 54 years old and I said, no, I want to be someplace where people are open to doing things in new ways. And for all the negative aspects of living in Florida, one of the positives is there's no fixed view of things. You know, there's an openness, I think, to doing things in new ways. And I could talk for an hour. Nobody wants me to do that. But of the things that you've said resonated so much with me. I've made a million notes about the points you've made. And yes, I did go to work for one employer, we'll leave unmentioned, a financial firm in West Palm Beach. And the atmosphere was so inhuman that I said, I don't need this. And I went and joined another firm. So it's so simple. I don't understand why we've lost this ability to connect with each other as valued human beings.
Well, that's true, Rosemary, and thank you very much. Like to give a shout out to everybody that's on the call. And also we have an international representative with us today. Shermeen Wilkinson hails from Trinidad and Tobago, and we were very happy to have her on the call, and have enjoyed having her share her time with us. So thanks to everybody on the call. Christine, anything as you close out? And Eduardo, thank you for being here. Mandy, we couldn't have ended up our Words of Wisdom series in any better way than you. So thank you so very much for your time.
Thank you. It was really such a pleasure. And I appreciate everyone's just engagement on the topic. It's awesome.
Great job, Mandy. Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. And we hope to see you all next week at Wisdom and Experience. Thank you and have a great day.
We'll be there. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.